Welcome back to the channel. Today we bring you a detailed update on one of the most volatile and dangerous conflicts shaping the world right now, the ongoing war involving Israel, Palestine, and Iran. This conflict is not only about borders or ideology, but about power, survival, and influence across the Middle East and beyond. It is a story with deep historical roots, a devastating human cost, and dangerous implications for regional and global stability. In this video, we will go through the latest battlefield updates, the role of Iran, the suffering of Palestinian civilians, Israel's security calculations, and how the entire situation could spiral into a much larger war that involves global powers like the United States, Russia, and China. Stay with me until the end, because understanding this conflict is critical to understanding whether the Middle East stands on the brink of peace or catastrophe. The war between Israel and Palestinian factions, particularly Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza, has entered a new and more destructive phase. Israeli airstrikes continued to target militant infrastructure, rocket launchers, command centers, and tunnel networks, but at the same time, densely populated civilian areas have suffered enormous damage. Gaza is under siege, with electricity, fuel, and water supplies disrupted, leaving ordinary families caught in an endless cycle of suffering. Palestinian health authorities report rising civilian casualties, while international organizations warn of a looming humanitarian catastrophe. On the other side, Israel faces continued rocket attacks that have reached as far as Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, disrupting daily life and forcing millions of Israelis into bomb shelters. The Iron Dome defense system intercepts many of these rockets, but not all. Each new barrage deepens Israeli fears for national security and strengthens the government's resolve to strike back harder. This tit-for-tat exchange of fire creates an endless cycle where neither side sees victory, only more destruction. What makes this current phase even more dangerous is the direct and indirect involvement of Iran. For years, Iran has been accused of supporting militant groups across the region, from Hezbollah in Lebanon to Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza. Tehran provides funding, weapons, training, and political backing to these groups, framing its actions as part of a broader struggle against Israel and Western influence. Recently, Iran's leadership has become more vocal, warning Israel that continued military campaigns against Palestinians will trigger a regional response. Iranian-made drones and rockets are already appearing in the hands of militant factions, raising questions about how much of the war's escalation is being orchestrated or supported by Tehran. The fear among many analysts is that what is now a localized war could easily evolve into a direct confrontation between Israel and Iran, something that would have catastrophic consequences not just for the Middle East but for the entire world. Lebanon is another front that cannot be ignored. Hezbollah, Iran's most powerful proxy force, has already exchanged fire with Israeli forces along the northern border. While both sides have so far avoided a full-scale war, the situation remains highly unstable. Israel views Hezbollah as an existential threat due to its arsenal of tens of thousands of rockets capable of striking deep into Israeli territory. Any decision by Hezbollah to fully join the war would mean Israel would be fighting on 2 or even 3 fronts at the same time: Gaza in the south, Lebanon in the north, and potentially direct Iranian attacks from afar. For Israel's military, this is the nightmare scenario, a multi-front war that stretches its defenses thin and forces it to rely even more heavily on Western allies for support. From Iran's perspective, this conflict is also about shaping the regional balance of power. Iran sees itself as the champion of resistance against Israel and the United States, using the Palestinian struggle as a rallying cry for Muslims across the Middle East. By supporting groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, Tehran increases its influence while keeping Israel under constant pressure. For Iranian leaders, weakening Israel also weakens American credibility in the region, as Washington is seen as Israel's staunchest backer. This strategy, however, comes at a cost. Iran faces growing economic pressure from sanctions, domestic unrest, and the risk that an open war with Israel could provoke direct American or even NATO intervention. Yet, despite these risks, Iran appears willing to gamble, calculating that Israel is already overstretched and that global powers are distracted by other conflicts such as Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Palestinian people continue to bear the brunt of the violence. In Gaza, entire neighborhoods have been reduced to rubble, hospitals are overwhelmed, and children are growing up in an environment where war is all they have ever known. In the West Bank, clashes with Israeli settlers and security forces have also escalated, leading to more deaths and arrests. The political leadership of the Palestinians remains divided, with the Palestinian Authority losing legitimacy and Hamas gaining ground as the symbol of resistance, despite the devastation its actions bring. For ordinary Palestinians, the hope for peace feels increasingly distant. International calls for ceasefires and humanitarian corridors are often ignored or short-lived, as military objectives override political compromises. The United States remains deeply involved in this conflict, both militarily and diplomatically. Washington supplies Israel with billions in aid, advanced weapons systems, and diplomatic backing at the United Nations. At the same time, American officials try to push for humanitarian relief for Palestinians, attempting to strike a balance that often satisfies no one. Arab nations, including Egypt, Jordan, and Qatar, play key roles in mediating ceasefires, but their influence is limited by deep mistrust between the parties. Russia and China, meanwhile, use the conflict to criticize Western policies, offering themselves as alternative brokers of peace while deepening ties with Iran. The result is that the Israel-Palestine conflict, once seen as a local struggle, now sits at the center of great power competition, with the Middle East as the chessboard for global rivalries. The humanitarian crisis is pushing the region closer to a breaking point. Refugee flows are increasing, regional economies are under strain, and religious tensions are rising across borders. The anger fueled by images of destruction in Gaza has triggered protests in capitals around the world, from London to Paris, from New York to Istanbul. The danger is that this anger will translate into radicalization, inspiring lone wolf attacks or fueling extremist movements globally. That means the impact of the Iran-Israel-Palestine war is not confined to the Middle East, it reverberates far beyond, shaping security concerns in Europe, the United States, and Asia. Looking ahead, there are only a few possible scenarios. The best-case outcome would be an internationally brokered ceasefire, with guarantees for both Israeli security and Palestinian humanitarian relief. But this would require all sides, including Iran, to step back from the brink, something that appears unlikely in the current climate. A more likely scenario is a prolonged war of attrition, where Israel continues periodic strikes and blockades. Palestinian groups continue rocket attacks, and Iran maintains support from the shadows. The most dangerous scenario, however, is escalation, Hezbollah opening a full northern front, Iran launching direct strikes, and the United States becoming militarily involved. Such a development could spiral into a regional war involving multiple countries, and potentially even drag in global powers in a wider confrontation. In conclusion, the Israel-Palestine war with Iran's involvement is one of the most dangerous conflicts of our time. It combines deep historical grievances, religious significance, modern military technology, and the ambitions of regional and global powers. For Israel, this is about survival and deterrence. For Palestinians, it is about freedom and resistance. For Iran, it is about influence and power projection. And for the rest of the world, it is about preventing a localized war from becoming the spark of a wider regional or even global conflict. As we watch events unfold, one thing is certain: the stakes could not be higher, and the world cannot afford to look away.